Working the night shift at Walmart sounds harmless enough. Bright lights, long aisles, the hum of refrigerators, and the occasional late-night shopper. But when the clock passes midnight, those same aisles can feel endless, empty, and that hum, it starts to sound like breathing. For most employees, the scariest part of the job is dealing with rude customers or cleaning up aisle spills. But for others, it's the things they can't explain: shadows that move against the light, whispers through the intercom, faces that appear on security monitors long after closing time. Tonight, we're diving deep into the strangest, most unsettling experiences shared by real Walmart workers. Stories of stalkers, cameras that caught something impossible, and people who were never supposed to be there. So dim your lights, lock your doors, and remember, what happens under those fluorescent bulbs isn't always human. These are 7 bizarre Walmart employee horror stories that will shock you. If you enjoy true horror stories like this, make sure you're subscribed. It helps us keep bringing real nightmares straight to your screen. Now, let's begin with the first story: The Night Shift Stalker. Story 1. The Night Shift Stalker. I've worked the night shift at Walmart for nearly 4 years now. It's not glamorous, but it's quiet, and I actually like the peace that comes when the doors close and customers disappear. The store goes from chaos to silence around midnight. All you hear is the buzz of the lights and the low rumble of the refrigerators in the frozen aisle. There's a rhythm to the night clean: stock, zone, repeat. But last winter, something about that rhythm changed. It started when we began noticing footprints in the snow behind the store. Every morning, the security manager, Doug, would find a single trail leading up to the back delivery door, stopping right at the metal frame but never coming back out. At first, he thought it was one of us sneaking a smoke break outside, but none of us smoked, and no one ever opened that door during shift. He showed us the security footage one night, and that's when things got strange. The camera above the loading dock caught movement around 2:47 a.m., a faint shadow by the dumpster, then what looked like someone walking toward the back door. You couldn't see their face, just a shape, thin, tall, with something long dragging behind them, like a coat or maybe hair. Doug checked the footage from the following minute, and the shape was gone, just like that. No door opened. No alarm triggered, nothing. He brushed it off as a glitch in the camera feed, but I didn't sleep well after that. A few nights later, I was restocking paper towels in aisle 14 when I heard a soft shuffle. Not footsteps exactly, more like fabric scraping along tile. I turned, nobody was there. The sound stopped. I went back to stacking boxes. Then the sound came again, this time closer. When I looked down the aisle, the motion light flickered on by itself, even though no one had walked through. That's when I noticed something off about the air. You know how stores always feel over-air-conditioned at night, but this was different, a stillness, like the temperature dropped all at once. And then, the sound of breathing, right behind the next shelf. Slow, heavy, like someone trying to stay quiet. I froze. I wanted to say something, but my throat just locked up. After a few seconds, the breathing stopped. When I finally gathered the courage to peek around the corner, no one was there. The next day, I told Doug what happened. He laughed it off at first until he checked the cameras again. Around 2:10 a.m., the feed from aisle 14 flickered, frame by frame. You could see something or someone standing just behind the end cap. They weren't clear, almost see-through, like the image couldn't fully capture them. But you could make out one detail: they were facing me. Doug told me it was a glitch again, but I saw the way his face drained of color. He didn't want to believe it either. That weekend, We all worked skeleton crew, just me, Doug, and one cashier named Lila. Around 3:30 a.m., the store was dead silent when the intercom suddenly crackled on. Aisle 14 cleanup required. Except the voice wasn't any of ours, and the tone was wrong, like it was trying to sound human but missing the rhythm of speech. Lila looked at me, pale as the white floor under her. Doug ran to the office to check the PA system. No one was there. The security feed, though, that showed something. A faint shape again, standing under the intercom panel in the electronics department. No face, no features, just there. Doug decided to shut down early that night. I wish that was the end of it. But 3 days later, I came in for my shift and Doug was gone. No call, no text, nothing. Corporate said he'd taken emergency leave. That same night, around 2:40 a.m., I walked past the break room and saw the door slightly open. The light inside was off, just the glow of the vending machine spilling through the crack. When I peeked in, I saw something on the floor. Doug's name badge. Bent. Scratched. And right above it, written on the whiteboard in what looked like permanent marker, "Still here." I quit 2 days later. But sometimes, when I drive past that Walmart on my way home from my new job, I swear I still see the back door light flickering and a tall shadow standing just behind the glass. Maybe it's just the way the streetlights hit it, or maybe not everything that shops there ever leaves. If you've ever worked the night shift, you know the silence can play tricks on you, but sometimes it's not the silence you should fear. It's what's listening inside it. Stay tuned because the next story might just make you rethink what happens after closing time. Story 2. Creepy Customer Returns. I used to work at Walmart's customer service desk, the place where everything comes back. Broken toasters, wrong size shoes, regret. But there was one return I'll never forget. It was around 9:30 p.m. on a Thursday night, about an hour before closing. The store was mostly empty except for a few stragglers. I was half asleep, scanning through the register logs, when he walked up. He looked normal enough, maybe mid-40s, tall, wearing a faded blue hoodie and jeans. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Hey," he said, "need to return this." He placed a small box on the counter. It was a digital alarm clock, one of those cheap ones with red LED numbers. I asked if it was defective. He looked at me for a moment, like he was trying to decide whether to tell me the truth. Then he leaned forward. "It keeps waking me up," he whispered, "at 3:17, every night, even when it's unplugged." I laughed awkwardly. I thought he was joking, but he didn't laugh. I processed the return, gave him his receipt, and watched him leave. When I looked down at the clock box, I noticed the sticker, "No barcode found," even though I'd just scanned it. Later that night, while restocking behind the counter, I heard a faint beeping sound. 3 short beeps, pause, then one long tone. It came from the returns bin, the one where we toss defective electronics before shipping them back. The alarm clock was sitting on top of the pile, glowing faintly red. The time read 3:17 a.m. I laughed nervously, telling myself it must have been someone playing a prank. I unplugged it. The light stayed on. So I took it to the back room and locked it in one of the defective item cages. Out of sight, out of mind. Or so I thought. 2 nights later, I was working the late shift again, and guess who came back? Same guy, same hoodie, only this time he wasn't carrying anything. He just stood by register 7 watching, didn't buy anything, didn't move, just watched. I asked if he needed help. He smiled again, the same too wide, too calm smile, and said, You kept it. Right. I froze. What? The clock, he said softly. It belongs to me. Don't throw it away. Before I could respond, he turned and walked straight out the automatic doors. The doors didn't open right away. They hesitated, stuttering like the motion sensor didn't see him. Then they slid open, and he was gone. I went to the back immediately. The defective cage door was wide open, and the clock was gone. I asked the overnight stock crew if anyone had moved it, but everyone swore they hadn't even gone near that section. That's when I started checking the cameras. Around 3:17 a.m., same time as the alarm, the footage showed the cage area. The lock was still latched, no one nearby. Then, frame by frame, you could see the cage door slowly open. And the clock, it wasn't taken. It just wasn't there anymore. The timestamp froze at 3:17 Uzurs exactly. The next day, my manager told me not to worry about it. He said weird tech glitches happen all the time with return items. But he also asked me if I'd seen the guy again. Apparently, he'd come in earlier that afternoon asking for me by name. When the manager told him I wasn't working, the man left quietly. No purchase, no car in the parking lot. He just walked in and out. Over the next week, strange things kept happening. The store phone would ring around 3:17 a.m., and when anyone answered, there was just faint static. Sometimes you could hear a whisper underneath it like someone saying, "Time's up." And the intercom, it would flicker on by itself at random only for the red LED display above the registers to flash 3:17, even during the day. We called maintenance. They checked the wiring, the system, the clocks, nothing wrong. My last night there was the worst. I was closing the service desk alone. The lights in the back half of the store were dimmed, and I was counting the drawer when I heard the sliding doors open. We were locked. Nobody should have been able to get in. I looked up, and there he was, standing just inside the doors. Same hoodie, only this time, he wasn't smiling. He held up the alarm clock. It was glowing brighter than before, the numbers pulsing red, like a heartbeat. And then he said, in this soft, almost pleading tone, "You should have given it back sooner." I stepped back, hit the silent alarm under the counter, and the lights flickered. Once, twice. Then every single screen in the store turned red. All the display TVs, the registers, even the self-checkout monitors. Each one flashed the same thing, 3:17. When I blinked, he was gone. Doors closed. Clock gone. Just the hum of the freezers again. I quit the next morning, but sometimes, when I can't sleep, I'll wake up and glance at my nightstand, and for just a second before my vision clears, I swear I see faint red numbers glowing there. 3:17. If you're working retail, especially those long, quiet shifts, remember, not everything that gets returned stays gone. Some things have a way of coming back right on time. And if this story made you double-check your own clock tonight, make sure you follow, because the next one is even more unsettling. Something caught on camera that no one was supposed to see. Story 3. Backroom encounter. I've worked in the back room of Walmart for years. No customers, no small talk, just me, the pallets, and the low buzz of the fluorescent lights overhead. Most people don't realize how big the storage area really is. It stretches behind the aisles like a maze, endless rows of shelves packed with unopened boxes, dusty equipment, and the smell of cardboard. There are spots back there where you can yell and no one in the store would ever hear you. That's probably why what happened last spring still messes with me. It started on a night we were running short-staffed, just me and another associate, Danny, doing overnight stock. He was assigned to grocery. I was in toys and seasonal. Around 200 a.m., I went to the back room to grab more boxes of stuffed animals. That's when I heard the pallet jack moving, metal scraping against the floor. Only problem, Danny was on the opposite side of the building. I called out, "Yo, anyone back here?" No answer, just the slow squeak of the wheels stopping somewhere in the dark. When I turned the corner, I saw the jack sitting in the middle of the aisle handle propped up, like someone had just left it. I walked closer. The handle suddenly tilted on its own and slammed back down with a loud clang. I jumped. Then I laughed it off. Old equipment does weird stuff all the time. But when I looked down, I noticed something that made me stop laughing. There were wet footprints on the concrete, bare feet. They led straight down the next aisle and then just stopped halfway. No puddle, no direction change, they just ended. I went back to the main floor and found Danny. He swore he hadn't been in the back room all night. We both went to check the cameras. The feed from that section was flickering, frame by frame. You could see me walk in. Then just before the pallet jack fell, there was another figure standing behind it. Tall, thin, and completely still. But when the handle slammed down and I turned toward the camera, the figure vanished. No blur, no fade, just gone. Danny paused the frame right before it disappeared, and we both saw the same thing, the reflection in a nearby metal shelf. The figure wasn't standing behind the pallet jack. It was standing behind me. We told the manager the next morning, but she brushed it off, said the security footage must have glitched from dust or motion blur. Still, for the next few nights, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Whenever I went into the back, the air felt heavier, like the sound was being swallowed. Sometimes, I'd hear faint tapping against the shelves, almost rhythmic, like someone drumming with their fingernails. Then one night, around 300 a.m., the motion sensor lights started going off one by one down the back hallway leading to the old stock cages. I was the only one back there. The lights would click off behind me, click, 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 like something was following right out of sync with my steps. When I stopped, they stopped. When I turned, they flickered back on. I remember whispering, "Who's there?" Silence. Then a single whisper right next to my ear, "You shouldn't be back here." I dropped the box I was carrying and ran. The next day, Danny said he heard the same voice while unloading a truck. He'd been bent over, pulling out a crate, when someone whispered the exact same thing, only this time from inside the trailer. We told the manager again, and this time she agreed to call maintenance to check the wiring, the motion sensors, everything. But before they came, the cameras caught something else. Around 2:54 a.m., one of the stock cage feeds glitched. A figure, blurry but clearly human-shaped, appeared behind the locked gate. No badge, no vest, just standing there. Maintenance reviewed the footage. They said the timestamp froze for 7 minutes straight. When the feed resumed, the cage door was still locked, and the figure was gone. A week later, we had a mandatory overnight inventory. All lights on, every section active. I was relieved safety in numbers, right. But during the shift, we lost power for about 10 seconds. Total blackout. When the backup lights flickered on, everyone was fine except Danny. He was gone. We searched the aisles, the restrooms, the parking lot. Nothing. Finally, we checked the security feed from the back room. At the exact moment the lights went out, you could see him standing near the cage. Then, in the faint red glow of the emergency light, a tall shadow moved across the frame toward him. When the lights came back on, Danny wasn't there anymore, just the pallet jack, rocking slowly on its own. They found him the next morning, not in the store but outside, sitting on the loading dock stairs. He was staring at the door, hands shaking, wouldn't speak for hours. When he finally did, all he said was, "It's still back there." He quit the same day. I lasted 2 more weeks before I did the same. Sometimes, when I visit that Walmart just to grab groceries, I make sure to stay away from the back section. But every now and then, when I pass by the double doors to the stockroom, I swear I hear the faint clang of a pallet jack handle hitting the floor. And if you ever get hired at a Walmart night shift, don't volunteer to work alone in the back room, because sometimes it's not empty boxes you're stacking, it's whatever's waiting between them. If you're still with me, take a deep breath and keep your lights low, because the next story is about something caught on camera that no one was ever meant to see. Story 4. Security camera footage. I've been working in Walmart's loss prevention department for 5 years now. My job is simple: monitor the cameras, prevent theft, and report anything unusual. After a while, you stop reacting to things. Shoplifters, late-night drunks, couples arguing in parking lots, it all blends into static. But what happened last year made me question everything I thought I knew about unusual. It started one Tuesday night around 11:45 p.m. The store was nearly empty, just a handful of customers and the closing crew. I was sitting in the security office, surrounded by 16 screens showing every inch of the store. Then I noticed something strange on camera number 7, the home goods aisle. A woman was standing perfectly still between the bedding shelves. At first, I thought she was just browsing, but minutes passed and she never moved. She was facing the camera directly. Her head was tilted just slightly to the right, eyes open, not blinking. I called out over the radio team, "Can someone check aisle 12? We've got a guest standing still, might need assistance." Danny, one of the stalkers, said he'd go. A minute later, his flashlight beam appeared on the screen. He walked right up to the woman. Then he stopped. I watched as he said something, probably asking if she needed help, but she didn't move. Then, suddenly, she turned her head completely toward him. Not gradually, just snapped sideways like a mechanical motion. Danny froze. He looked straight into the camera, right into my monitor, and mouthed, "Do you see this?" Then the screen flickered. Static for half a second. When the image came back, the aisle was empty. Both of them were gone. I called over the radio again. No response. I switched to camera number 9 facing the next aisle. Nothing. Camera number 10 showing the end cap. Nothing. Then camera number 11 near the emergency exit flickered once. A tall figure stepped into view, but it wasn't Danny. It was the woman. Her head still tilted, her clothes darker now, like they'd absorbed shadow, and her face, it wasn't facing the camera anymore, but somehow I could still feel that she was looking at me. The lights above her flickered, one after another, following her as she walked toward the camera. Then the feed went black. Every monitor in the room froze. The only sound left was the faint static from the intercom. And then I heard it, my own voice, coming through the speaker, a whisper, repeating my name. I must have pulled the plug on the system, because the next thing I remember, the lights came back on and all 16 screens rebooted. Everything looked normal again. Customers gone. Aisles empty. No sign of the woman, no sign of Danny. But when I checked the playback logs, the recording for camera number 7 was missing, completely deleted. The timestamp jumped from 11:44 p.m. straight to 12:02 a.m. Corporate IT said it must have been a data glitch, but I knew better, because the backup server automatically mirrors every feed in real time, even if one file gets corrupted. So I checked the mirror, and the file was there, labeled with a timestamp, but no duration, just 00. When I clicked on it, the screen stayed black for a few seconds. Then, faintly, you could hear something not static, but breathing. Slow, close, almost like someone was leaning right up to the microphone. Then the screen lit up for a split second, not the aisle, but the security room itself. And there I was, sitting at my desk, looking into the camera. I slammed the laptop shut. The next day, I asked around. No one had seen Danny since that night. His car was still in the parking lot, keys on the seat. When the cops came, they reviewed the footage too, and they saw nothing. Literally nothing. The same missing segment. They said maybe he walked out and the cameras missed it. But I knew that wasn't true, because that night, at exactly 3:14 a.m., the motion detector in aisle 12 triggered again, the same aisle where she first appeared. When I pulled up the live feed, the monitor showed just static, but in the static, for a fraction of a second, I could make out a shape. Her shape. And, behind her, a second silhouette. Danny. After that, I stopped volunteering for night shifts, but the footage didn't stop showing up. Sometimes, I'd open my system in the morning and see unlogged videos saved to the local drive. No timestamp, no camera number, just short, silent clips of aisles I didn't recognize. And every time, in the far corner of the frame, you could see someone standing still, always facing the lens, always slightly tilted. I stopped trying to delete them after a while, because no matter how many I removed, new ones appeared the next day. The store has new management now. They built a new office, new cameras, new everything. But a few weeks ago, the overnight associate came in to open, and she swore she heard something through the intercom. She said it sounded like whispering, repeating one word over and over, a name she didn't recognize. When I asked what name it was, she said mine. If you ever work in a store that uses 24-hour surveillance, remember this: cameras don't just record what's there. Sometimes they remember what was. And if you ever catch something staring back through the feed, don't look too long, because something might be watching you too. If you've made it this far, thank you, but don't relax yet, because the next story takes place outside the store, where even the cameras couldn't save anyone. The parking lot horror is coming up next. Keep your lights dim and stay with me. Story 5. Parking Lot Horror. It was a little after 11:30 p.m. when I clocked out of my shift. The parking lot outside Walmart was almost empty, just a few cars left, scattered beneath the flickering yellow lights. The air was damp from earlier rain, and the pavement shimmered like glass. I remember thinking how quiet it was, too quiet for a Friday night. I walked slowly, scrolling through my phone, half zoned out. My car was parked all the way in the back, near the edge of the lot where the cameras didn't reach. I hated parking there, but the lot had been full earlier. That's when I noticed it, a black sedan idling 3 rows away. Its engine was running, headlights off, just sitting there. I tried to ignore it at first. Maybe it was another employee finishing up. But when I glanced again, the driver's side door was cracked open just a sliver, and someone was sitting inside. I couldn't see their face. A weird chill crept up my spine. I quickened my pace. The sound of my footsteps echoed on the wet pavement. When I hit the unlock button on my key fob, my car's lights blinked. That's when the sedan's engine suddenly revved low, sharp, deliberate. It wasn't loud, but it felt directed at me. I froze. The car didn't move. The door stayed open, but I could feel eyes on me. Something about that silence, the mix of humming lights, wet asphalt, and distant freeway noise made everything feel unreal, like time had slowed down. I told myself not to make it a big deal. I slipped into my car, locked the doors, and started the engine. The radio came on some static-filled country station. As I reversed, my headlights flashed across the sedan. That's when I saw it. The driver wasn't alone. There was someone crouched behind the passenger seat, head tilted, watching me through the half-open window. Their face was pale, eyes wide. My stomach dropped. I threw the car into drive and peeled out of there. Didn't even look back. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely steer. I went straight home, locked every door, and barely slept that night. The next day, I came in for the morning shift, still trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. But when I pulled into the lot, my manager and 2 cops were standing near the back row right where that sedan had been. They told me an employee found a car abandoned there earlier. Doors open, engine still warm. Inside, they found duct tape, rope, and an empty syringe on the floor. No one ever came to claim it. For weeks after that, I couldn't walk to my car without scanning every shadow, every parked vehicle. That same flickering light still buzzes over that corner of the lot, and I swear sometimes, when the night is quiet enough, it sounds like an engine idling. So if you ever find yourself alone after a late shift, under those buzzing Walmart lights, don't ignore that gut feeling, because not every car that waits for you in the dark is empty. Story 6. The Regular. I used to work the early morning shift, 5 a.m. to noon. It wasn't bad, quieter, calmer, and I got to leave before the chaos started. There was one customer everyone knew. We called him the Regular. He came in every single morning, right when we opened. Always the same outfit, gray hoodie, old work boots, and a baseball cap with the Walmart logo, not one we ever sold. He never said much, just grabbed a coffee from the machine, a newspaper, and a pack of gum. Paid in cash. No smile. No small talk. Then he'd leave. Same time, same route, every day. At first, it was almost comforting. Routine in a job that changed constantly. But after a few months, something about him started to feel off. One morning, I noticed his hands. They were shaking just slightly when he counted his change, and his fingers were covered in what looked like dried paint, dark red, almost brown. I tried not to stare, but he noticed. He looked up at me and smiled the first time he'd ever done that. But it wasn't friendly. It was slow, deliberate, like he knew something I didn't. The next morning, he wasn't there. None of us thought much about it. People miss days. Maybe he was sick. But the morning after that, he was back. Same hoodie, same boots, same cap. Only this time, he didn't buy anything. He just stood at the entrance, watching. I asked if he needed help, but he didn't answer. He just kept staring down aisle 4. That aisle leads to the employee break room. When I looked back at him, he was gone. No sound, no door opening, just gone. The manager checked the security feed later that morning. We watched the footage together. It showed me at the counter, looking up just like I remembered. But in the camera's view, no one was standing at the door. Just me, talking to empty air. I remember laughing it off, pretending it was a glitch. But the way my manager looked at me, I could tell he didn't believe that. 2 days later, a cop came by. He asked to see the overnight security footage. Apparently, someone had been found behind the store that weekend. A man, mid-40s, gray hoodie, work boots, and a Walmart cap. He'd been dead for at least 3 days. That means the morning I spoke to him, he'd already been gone. They said he used to work at that same store years before I ever did. He was fired after getting into a fight with another employee in the break room. He never came back, at least not officially. Every now and then, I still open that same shift. And when I walk past the coffee machine, I swear I can smell old cologne and burnt coffee grounds. Like he's still around, waiting for someone to say, "Good morning." So if you ever work a morning shift and the store feels too quiet, don't assume you're alone. Some routines never really end. Story 7. Final story. There's one thing most people don't realize about working at Walmart. The store doesn't really sleep, even after the lights go out. There's always something moving. The hum of the freezers, the buzz of the cameras, the faint shuffle of boxes in the dark. I used to work maintenance, night shifts, mostly. Empty store, just me, a mop, and the sound of those lights humming overhead. It wasn't so bad until I found the room. It started as a rumor. Other employees mentioned it quietly, like a secret no one wanted to claim. A back room behind the storage area, one that didn't show up on any of the floor plans. At first, I thought it was a joke, until one night, I found the door. It was behind a stack of old pallets near the frozen food section. Metal door, no handle. Just a narrow slit where something used to be bolted in. When I shined my flashlight through the crack, I saw concrete stairs going down. Now, I know I should have stopped there, but curiosity has a way of making you stupid. I wedged the door open with a crowbar. Cold air rushed out sharp, dry, like dust and old metal. I called out, "Hello, no echo, just silence." The stairs went deeper than I expected, and at the bottom, there was another door, wooden, this time painted over a dozen times, and written across it, in black marker, were the words, "Do not enter after midnight." I looked at my phone, 12:04 a.m. I almost laughed. Some kind of prank. I thought, maybe the stock guy's being funny. But when I turned the knob, I felt resistance, like someone was holding it from the other side. Then, suddenly, it gave way. The door opened. Inside was a small office, old, dusty, abandoned for years, filing cabinets, broken monitor, and a chair facing the wall. On the desk was an old employee badge. The name had faded, but I could still make out the photo. Same gray hoodie, same Walmart cap. It was the regular. I froze. My flashlight flickered once, twice, and in the dim beam, I saw something move in the reflection of the dusty monitor. The chair turned. No one was sitting in it, but it kept turning, slow and steady, until it faced me. And that's when I noticed the faint imprint on the seat, as if someone had just been there. A voice whispered right behind me, not loud, not clear, just one word. "Leave." I ran, didn't look back, didn't stop until I was out in the main aisles again. When I turned around, the door was gone, completely gone, just smooth drywall where it had been. The next morning, I asked my supervisor about it. He just stared at me for a long time. Then he said quietly, "That part of the store doesn't exist anymore." He wouldn't explain. He just told me to stop asking. A few months later, that whole section was remodeled. New flooring, new layout, and right over the spot where I'd found the door, they built the new self-checkout lane. But every so often, when I'm cleaning late, one of those registers powers on by itself. No customer, no employee near it. And on the screen, for just a second, you can see an old login name flash before it disappears. The regular. So if you're ever shopping late at night and one of the self-checkouts turns on while you walk by, don't look at the screen, because sometimes it's not your reflection staring back. You've just listened to 7 bizarre Walmart employee horror stories that will shock you. If these stories kept you on edge, make sure you're subscribed and leave a comment sharing which one haunted you the most. Your story might be the next one we tell. Until then, keep your lights dim and your eyes open, because even the brightest stores have their shadows. If you've made it this far, you already know the scariest things don't happen deep in the woods or in some abandoned asylum. They happen under fluorescent lights, between aisles you've walked 1,000 times, at places you thought were safe. Every employee, every late-night shopper, they all have a story, something they can't explain, a noise behind a door that shouldn't exist, a reflection that shouldn't move, a face that doesn't belong. And maybe that's what makes these stories so unsettling. They aren't about monsters or ghosts, but about how ordinary life can slip just a little into something that isn't ordinary at all. When you work in a place like Walmart long enough, you stop believing in coincidences. You start to notice patterns, lights that flicker in the same spot every night, registers that turn on when no one's there, customers who walk in but never seem to leave. So tonight, when you pass by those automatic doors and they open for no one, take a second before you walk inside. Listen. Because somewhere in that hum of lights, that endless ringing of scanners and footsteps, there's a whisper waiting for you. A reminder that not all stories end when the shift does. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe. It helps keep these true horror stories alive and lets us bring more of them straight to your screen. Leave a comment below and tell us which story from tonight's episode haunted you the most. Your experience, your encounter, might just be featured in our next collection. Until next time, keep your lights dim and your mind open, because even when the store closes, some things never clock out.